Wicked. We're live. All right. So, anyone who's been playing along at home, welcome back to the Talking Average Fitness Podcast. As always, my name is Sam Burns, and I promise I'm going to go to quarterfinals one of these days. I am joined every week with my buddy, Mr. Kevin McCarthy. I'll let you find out which one is the ginger and the gymnast. And we have a guest today inside of the same box, the same window there, Mr. Colin Hill. Colin, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course. At this point, if anyone has listened to us, they know who the heck we are. I would love for them to get the world record Fran time version of kind of who you are and how you got to CrossFit, and specifically how you got to Tilt. And if it does go longer than 1 minute and 52 seconds, then that's okay.
Huh. My Fran time's not that fast, so we're going to adjust it for my Fran time.
Roger that.
No.
Scale appropriately.
Yeah, right. So I got on CrossFit basically through a friend. I was a gymnastics coach, and one of the athletes I coached, a new guy, actually former roommate of Kevin's, so kind of small world there. They went to school together. They lived together. Ended up becoming a good friend of mine and got me into CrossFit. I taught him a little bit of gymnastics. He said, "Hey, why don't you come try out some CrossFit?" I was like, "Cool." And I resent him every day since for teaching it to me, because quite honestly, I immediately fell in love with it and the new challenge and everything like that.
We all have that friend.
Yeah, exactly. So coming from a competitive gymnastics standpoint, that transition into CrossFit hooked me pretty quickly. And then getting into coaching, I've just always been a professional coach. Like, I've coached gymnastics since I was probably 18 years old, and then developed it into a career after college. And then it just kind of flowed right into CrossFit. An extremely long story short, I ended up coaching at a gym here in Massachusetts called Pennant CrossFit, which then turned into Tilt 5. And I was going to work back at Pennant. I was at Pennant. I left Pennant. I was going to go back to Pennant. It turned into Tilt. I got hooked up with Tilt. Now here I am with Sudbury with this guy.
Word.
So he was here first. I came after.
Yeah.
That much I knew.
Yeah.
When you say competitive gymnastics, like, I have an idea of what I think that means, but like, can you did you go to the Olympics, or does that mean something else?
He's done a cartwheel before.
I've done at least one. So that's, I would say that's probably the most common question I get. Like, "Hey, Olympics." Like, no, I personally did not go to the Olympics, but a lot of the athletes that I trained with, a lot of the athletes that I coached with were at that level. I was probably a little bit one step down. Okay. So we'll say probably never reached my full potential. That's a whole other conversation. But a lot of the athletes that I trained with were on Olympic teams for different countries. My coach in college was on the Olympic team in 2008 for the U.S. team. So kind of had some experience and exposure to that level of gymnastics, competed against those athletes in college. Never was quite at that level myself, but was surrounded by that for a long time.
That's very cool. I've had the good fortune to work with a number of people in and around and with backgrounds in gymnastics. And I hate you all, because you're much better at CrossFit innately than everyone. So right here, buddy.
Ourselves too. So.
Yeah.
So we wanted to have you on, first of all, because I'm pretty sure Kevin's in love with you. He talks about you constantly. And
that comes from all the time we spend staring into each other's eyes.
And that I have no doubt. And you are the head coach at Tilt Sudbury, yes?
Yeah.
Very cool. So I think this is a great opportunity to have you on to talk about a bunch of different things, and where we actually end up in this conversation, who knows? But we've talked many times in this podcast about gymnastics in general and virtuosity and the virtues of virtuosity. And then in your position as a head coach, we've just come out of the Open. I think that we had maybe a different Open than some people might have thought we were going to have. And it was unique both from a movement standard perspective and from, an affiliate logistics perspective. And so I think this is a really great opportunity to kind of pick your brain about a bunch of different things. Yeah. Kind of jumping right in, first of all, before I basically just start throwing questions. Kevin, or any thoughts, questions, concerned about anything I might ask Colin? Do you want to hedge bets in any way, shape, or form about our topics here today?
I mean, I think if you want some really strong opinions, you just have to ask him how he feels about the crossover double under from the games this past year. And that's we could just do a whole podcast on that.
I could give you an hour of my feelings on that, but we'll digress from that.
Really?
We've had many conversations about it. He and I have gone back and forth about it.
Okay, so let's go 30-second version. Pro, con, neutral?
Hated it.
Hated it. Okay.
Hated it.
Okay. No, I'm going to guess then because lack of a functional movement carryover?
Quite honestly, not even that. It has no, like, in terms of like functional movement carryover, any like methodology standpoint, nothing to do with that. In my very quick opinion, it was too hokey. And I use that word for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
I think it was a super, super simple, low-hanging fruit progression, single, double, triple. We've been seeing high-level, games-level athletes practicing triple unders a long time. We've never seen them in a competition format, or at least a sanctioned CrossFit competition format. And it would have been very easy to just go single, double, triple, and then move on to that. We'll call it a press handstand on the parallel, whatever, to move right onto that, because I think you just see what happened. None of the female athletes finished. Now the whole situation with Danielle Brandon, the judge was whatever.
Right.
But none of the female athletes finished. Maybe one or two on the male side got to the parallettes, and maybe one or two finished the entire workout.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in my opinion, it was just a little bit too hokey. I think if you had just done triple unders, that would have been a great test. They would have been able to get through it. It would have been more about their speed, proficiency on a higher skill jump rope movement. And could you get onto the parallettes? We didn't even see if the athletes could really traverse, like press the handstand and traverse the parallettes, because nobody got there. So I just think it was a little too hokey in a CrossFit Games where we're already seeing all of these different things, which I'm not against at all.
Sure.
I think you're just throwing a little bit too much at people, and it just got a little bit too gimmicky, if you will. Maybe that's a better word.
No, I think that's a great way to kind of sum that up, and especially when you think about the test that could have been single, double, triple, high skill monostructural movement under fatigue with a high skill parallel handstand walk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that from a progression standpoint as a test, that seems like a simpler, more elegant solution. So I'm right there along with you.
It came about, do you have grade school jump rope tricks? Like that's what it became by the end of that.
Yeah. Are your biceps small enough that you can cross your arms across?
Yeah. Like my arms don't go that far.
Right?
Anyway.
Lats are too tight. All right. So let's talk then kind of like about the Open in general. So going into the Open, I was convinced that we were going to see 12.1 as a repeat for the first workout.
That is 7 minutes of burpees.
That is a 7 minutes.
Yeah. All right.
And I'm thinking to myself, all right, Boz has a penchant for simplicity and kind of classic CrossFit. We've been waiting for it. It's 7 years later or something like that. No, it's 11 years later. And yeah, we're all old.
Not that long.
Yeah.
Yes. Turns out math is a bitch. And I was blown away. We had like a repeat, but like a 5 movement chipper and ring muscle ups in the first workout.
Yeah.
In general, when you look back on the Open season that we just experienced, like what kind of comes to mind, in any way, shape, or form as an affiliate, a person who's running it in an affiliate, as a gymnast, etc.
So my initial thoughts is I love the Open this year. I really was happy with the way they did the programming. I think it had a really good balance of movements, of skill, of strength, of endurance. And so I thought really well programmed. Again, take it with a grain of salt coming from me.
Sure.
But I'll tell you what I really did like that they did and did not do is they didn't shy away from higher skill movements and heavier barbells.
Yep.
Now, if you look at that snatch workout in the grand scheme of things, the 225, 155 snatch for your high level games athletes,
Sure.
not a super heavy bar. At that point in the workout, it does become challenging for them,
Different ball game,
relatively speaking, but it is still a relatively heavy bar, especially for the majority population. So they didn't shy away from a heavy barbell. They didn't shy away from higher skill movements, which you saw with the ring muscle ups, with the strict handstand push-ups.
Yep.
I love, because I think a lot of people that I've talked to in the last couple of years with the introduction of quarterfinals now saying like, we're not going to see that in the open anymore. Yep, this guy being one of them. We're not going to see that in the open anymore. You're going to have to earn your heavy barbell in quarterfinals. You're going to have to do quarterfinals to do your handstand push-ups, ring muscle, whatever it might be, some of that stuff. And I'm really glad that CrossFit didn't go that route, because then you're taking away part of what CrossFit is. CrossFit is not in its entirety, right? There's a lot more to it, but it is heavy barbells. It is high skill gymnastics. That's all part of it. So if we're going to take that out and just say, hey, sorry guys, like you don't get to see that during the open. I think that would have been a miss on CrossFit. And I also think that sometimes simple is elegant, like that. I mean, the running and that burpee pull-up, what a workout.
Right.
What a workout. But it was
Work
also
capacity.
heavy barbell. So you gave people both work capacity and strength. And I think that was so eloquently programmed that way. And the first part didn't interfere with that second part as much as maybe a lot of people thought it would.
Except that you had no time and had to go into a heavy
You had to go. But once you got a few reps under your belt, you're like, all right, I feel all right. Like,
sure.
Let's go. Maybe 7 minutes would have been a little bit better.
Hang on a second. A few reps. How many reps of the thruster did you get, Colin?
Like four or five.
Wow. Okay. So I think I would think that most people would be like happy with 3 reps. So I'm glad to hear that someone felt good, quote unquote, by the time they got a couple reps.
Also, to be fair, like it definitely was for both of us was a benefit. Like we had each other helping. We shared a bar for the thrusters. We were like, so while he was like, chalking his hands, preparing for his next lift, like what do you want on there, Colin? I would put plates on. He could hit it. Kevin, what do you want? He'd change the plates. I'd do it. So we kind of went back and forth, just like you go, I go.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting a good amount of thrusters in that 5-minute window because we shared a bar, not by plan, but because the bar that I had set out for myself was was taken by someone else.
Somebody bogarted it.
No, this is my bar now. I was like, all right.
Oh, cool. All right.
So we got to the thruster after Colin, as we found out after Colin beat me by half a burpee pull-up, just the pull-up portion.
Hey, that's a full rep.
It's a full rep.
Doesn't matter if it was half, whatever. That's a full rep on the scoreboard.
Rep's a rep. So
after doing that, like he's coming over to his barbell. He did a thruster at 135. I came over. I was like, we're sharing a bar now, and just so you're aware, we're gonna share a bar.
Noted.
Yeah.
But it worked out great because it was kind of like he would do one, and then instead of one of us just standing around like, oh, when should I go again? I was like, he did one,
I do one,
change out the weight, and then I just did one, and then we changed out the weight, and he would do one. And
we're also
it actually worked out really well.
I think I did 3 total thrusters because I had like a plan in my head, like if I can hit 185 with the fact that I haven't like cleaned or thrustered in a while because I've been dealing with back hip stuff and then soccer stuff. So I was like, if I can hit 185 without pooping my spine out, I'd be ecstatic. I'm just going to call it there. I'm just going to take that as a win. So I think I did 135, 165, 185, and then called it done. And so then the rest of the time, he just had me as a bar loader for I think the next 2 or 3 attempts. What do you want? Put it on there. What do you want? Put it on there.
So, I mean, you saw like you're saying, he called it early, but he would have had time for at least one more, probably 2 more if the motivation or the life had allowed for it.
If your soul not leaving your body had allowed for it.
Oh, that's important.
That was
So
go ahead, Sam.
Well, I think this is I like your take on it. I've seen so many different opinions about, and some from people who are, regular CrossFitters, some from people who are, kind of like exercise physios and like, or exercise scientists or, no, that's not the word I'm thinking about. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking. Yeah.
Just use the word science.
Everything. Science. Yeah, science. And not many of them are pro this notion that, what happened and what we all experienced was an appropriate test. And so I think that your approach and your viewpoint is, one, a little refreshing, but also two, you've got good reasons for it. And I agree, I think one of the things that I keep thinking about is, if you go back to old school CrossFit, right? There was this notion of the tip of the spear, and we design tests and we design workouts to prepare you for the unknown and unknowable, right? And so in that there is this component of, and I've heard some red shirts talk about this. We make hard people. We do hard things so that we can make hard people. And part of that is you do a hard thing knowing that you might fail, or you do a thing that is not what you want to do. And in doing that, you struggle and blah, 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 all of this, building of resilience and things like that. And I'm looking at a lot of the reactions that I'm seeing, and I'm like, where is the resilience? Where is the... And don't get me wrong, I kind of was in the same boat as Kevin, where I was assuming that because of the structure of 5-week to 3-week open and then quarterfinals and then semis, like, it made sense for CrossFit to make the open as accessible as possible, to get as many people doing it as possible, right? So that works in their favor at a bunch of different levels. And then using simpler workouts and work capacity tests to kind of winnow the field of people, and then get into heavier barbells and higher skilled movements in the quarterfinal stuff. All of that makes sense. But you're right. CrossFit is more complex movements. CrossFit is, strict handstand push-ups without kipping beforehand, because it turns out kipping handstand push-ups aren't a scale for strict, which I know is a controversial topic.
Yeah,
a little bit. And so I'm grokking what you're saying. I'm running along with it. What was the biggest pain in the ass for the two of you inside of the affiliate?
Oh, easy question for me. I don't know about you, but
yeah, we're probably going to agree on this one.
First workout? Yeah. Running that first workout, trying to do that in 2 heats with all the movements, and having like the scales for the muscle up for, just being pull-ups, or whatever that may be, and trying to get people squared away with that in a 60-minute class while running 2 heats with allowing appropriate warm up for your second heat. That was tough.
Super hard. Well, because of course you want to, you have CrossFit puts out like their RX and their scaled version of the open workout. Yes. And while that's great, we also have a lot of our members aren't signed up for the open, like on CrossFit.com. So they're like, well, why can't I do this option over here? This is what I normally do for
muscle ups. This is something we always do.
This is something we always do. So, we had made the decision as a staff, and instead of saying, fuck you, pick an option, we were going to kind of try and give a little bit of leeway, especially for those higher skilled movements, for athletes that aren't signed up for the open, to do something that allows them to enjoy their workout and feel good about their workout. So I think it was like it was muscle ups, and then I forget what the scaled option was for the muscle up.
Pull-ups.
Was it just chin over bar?
Was it chin over bar pull-ups? Yeah.
Wasn't even chest to bar?
Nope. I double checked.
The score sheet.
Yeah. Well, so I couldn't remember if it was chin over bar or chest to bar, but it was like some type of pull-up.
Yeah.
Some type of pull-up. And so it's like, instead of being like, okay, you're either doing muscle ups or pull-ups, we try to give people a little bit of some options, leeway back, and you could do a jumping pull-up. You could do so, for our classes, trying to manage not just the RX and the scaled option, but like, here's a couple in betweeners. If you're not signed up for the open, but you still want to play, here's something we can sub in. So trying to like, we kind of made our own problem in that, like let's add some options.
Yeah.
But it served our members well. And even though, did we have a class run on time that day? I think we were over.
And that was real close with one of my classes. I was like a minute impressive. Over. So I was pretty pumped on that. I think we were moving.
Yeah. So I think our a couple minutes over on each class, because you're trying to and there's probably a difference of like someone just took an extra minute in the bathroom. We did like a bathroom break type thing. So that was the most stressful. Okay, we have so many things to do and go over and try and like touch on each skill and give enough warm up time for heat 1, talk to the judges about the different judging standards, especially if you're judging someone that's participating in the open as a signed up participant, and then vice versa. Give the heat that just finished time to roll around on the floor, get the second heat warmed up. All right, now my other judges come over. Let's talk about standards. Bathroom break. Do we have any more tape? Wait, where's my...
I got the wrong wall ball.
I got the wrong wall ball. Who took my wall ball?
Right.
All the fun stuff that goes into running a class during the open is,
and so it's always that 20 seconds here, 20 seconds there, 20 seconds here, and then all of a sudden 5 minutes have gone by, and you're like, oh, here we are. And it's with so many moving parts and so many movements, it's so easy to lose 20 to 30 seconds. So many different spots, and that adds up so fast. If you lose it one, not the end of the world. But if you lose it, 30 seconds 10 times, your class is over by 5 minutes. And it's so easy to do,
especially when you have back-to-back classes and you're like, okay, now this class starting 5 minutes late, you're already fighting an uphill battle. Right. You're like, I already lost 5 minutes of this
now
class.
I gotta find it on the next one. So that was trying to go run back-to-back classes.
That one was the hardest logistically from an affiliate standpoint. But I do think that over the course of all the open workouts, I'm in full agreement with you guys. I thought it was a great open. The only thing I didn't like about it was that it proved wrong everything that I said so adamantly prior to the open.
I like that the most. That's my favorite, to be quite honest. I love that. So I love that I was right.
Everyone in class is like, what are we going to see for the open? We're going to see some muscle ups. I was like, nah, muscle ups are for quarterfinals because then no one's going to bitch about it, which I still think is true.
You ate that one.
If you put muscle ups in quarterfinals, no one's going to bitch about it. You put it in the open. There's always going to be people who are like, well, I don't have a muscle up. So don't program yourself. In agreement. Harden up, learn to get one.
Right. Give a shit about gymnastics other than 3 weeks in February.
Yeah. Well, no, it's 3 weeks in February and the 2 weeks prior. There's a 5.
Yes.
And then 2 weeks after when everyone's super motivated.
Exactly.
Right now everyone's like, let's go. I got to get ready for next year.
Muscle up.
In a month from now, no one's going to care again.
Right. And then they realize gymnastics is rude. And then they're like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. So if you have about a 6-week window where people care about muscle ups, and then at some point within that 6-week window, next year, they're going to be upset about muscle ups. So it's just, anyways, we're not going to see a heavy bar, maybe in a ladder thing, in 23.3, that climbing ladder snatches, that's going to be the only time you're going to see a heavy barbell. You have to be fit enough to earn it.
Yep.
But it's going to be within a conditioning element, and we're not going to see heavy barbell. They're going to keep the first one's going to be super user friendly. So that's as much as I didn't want to do your 7 minutes of burpees, I was like, it's probably a viable option.
Yeah.
And so I was because again, those are the patterns that Dave had set when Dave was programming. This was the first 2 opens that were 3 weeks under Dave. Those were kind of the patterns. The third workout had some skill or heavy bar, but there was a progression to it. You got to be fit enough to get there.
Yep.
And there wasn't a 2-part workout. There wasn't a heavy bar, and there wasn't any really high skilled movements until the very, very end of the last one. And I was like, that's just going to be the way it is because it's inclusive and accessible to the community.
Right.
And whether I thought that was right or wrong, I was like, this just is, I can recognize a pattern. That's going to be what it is.
Right.
Well, I very adamantly and confidently would be telling people in class, nope, we're not going to see that. This is what we're going to see. It's how it's going to go. And Colin would disagree with me. And aggressively disagree with me.
On principle.
And so, just that's why he enjoyed it so much, because he was not only proven right, but took a clean sweep, 4 for 4, 4-game win streak.
That's right. There was
because you won the lift. Yeah.
So I wasn't including that.
Okay. Well, so 4-game win streak this year in the open. So he has officially retired from CrossFit. He hasn't worked out since. Came out on top. But
awesome.
I like that all the workouts were relatively, aside from, again, the first one, because you had multiple stations of you have a rower, you have a wall ball target, a pull-up bar, rings if you get there, barbell on the floor. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces.
Yeah.
The rest of them were very easy to set up in terms of logistically where people could go. So for the second one, you had your shuttle run and burpee pull-ups, and we're fortunate enough here, our setup, we have a rig on either side of the room. They're 33 feet apart. So what we did is we'd gone back and forth on set the line under the pull-up bar, like the demo had shown, and then 25 feet this way, and do another one for the other side of the rig. And you're gonna have people tripping over lines, and which one am I going to? So we kind of talked about just putting one in the middle. It's a few feet off of each pull-up bar. what we found was something that you and I had talked about, Sam, beforehand, was the standard of when you come down from your last burpee pull-up, you have to start on the opposite side of your line before you can start your shuttle run.
Yes.
And so it took out that potential issue, because when you land on the floor, you're already like that 2 feet back from your line. So you can just turn around and go without worrying about it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because that had no effect on anyone.
It had no effect on
anyone's workout. It was such an instant, it was literally one step,
like
and
one step
where you need to go. So
and because that was something like I saw like in videos people post on the internet, like some people come down from their pull-up bar and
no
like
rep on a shuttle run
and
they're
or not getting no rep because they just came down from their burpee pull-up, pivot, off they go. But it's like both your feet were on the wrong side of the line, or one foot was on the wrong side of the line, homie. So it should be a no rep, but your judge is going to count it anyways. And like I saw that happen to people, I'm like, yikes. So for all of our elite level athletes, we took that headache out of it.
All of our elite level athlete.
You.
Jack?
Yeah. Jack
did a good job.
Jack did a great job.
There's a couple people did a pretty good job with that.
Yeah.
So that one was easy to set up. And then I really liked people, I've heard arguments back and forth on this one. I really like the wall walk standard, where it's like one line for male athletes, one line for female athletes. If you're shorter, I'm not here for your feelings. Sorry, Colin.
Well, I'll tell you, I also like it. It's simple.
Yes.
I don't like it because I'm not tall.
Right. That's how I felt about the handstand push-up standard this year.
Well,
like,
get better at handstand push-ups.
Well, yes. But it's one piece of tape.
Yep.
Set length.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hands have to be on the tape.
None of this shit.
Yeah. Your hands have to be on the tape. And then you do your handstand push-ups. And it's like, I love it as a coach and someone who understands and respects the methodology. I'm like, it's simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much idiot proof, unless you don't know how to measure 30 inches with a tape measure.
Now we have other problems.
Math is hard, but
it is.
It was simple. It was easy to set up. It was easy to implement, and it's like, there's no moving parts and pieces. One piece of tape, hands on the tape, do your handstand push-up. So I love the standard for that reason. I just didn't love it for me specifically.
I'll say though, on that, I think this is the best standard. And again, take this with a grain of salt all you want. I think it's the best standard that CrossFit has had for a handstand push-up that I've seen since I've been part of CrossFit. I started, my first open was 2016. I don't even know if their handstand. Oh, there was that terrible 55 workout. Anyway. But I think this was the best standard because there's no tape line on the wall that your feet have to get across. Like nobody cares where your feet are on the wall.
Take the length of your lung.
Right. It's just
add it to your horoscope sign.
Right. If you're a Gemini, you get a little bit in favor. If you're a Capricorn, not so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, but it was the best one because quite honestly, it was so simple.
Yeah.
And it put you in the truest handstand position and handstand push-up position that we've seen so far.
Yeah.
There was no people out here doing the YMCA with their hands 35 feet apart and trying to short that range of motion and get every little inch they could. Now people are still trying to get every little inch. Your thumb is on the far side of the line. The fingertips are barely touching. You're trying to get as far and as wide as you can. And I get it. It's competition. You're trying to get the quickest range of motion. This guy over here. But I'll tell you right now, for anyone who just practices a handstand in a traditional handstand position, coming from a gymnastics background, it had absolutely zero impact on my handstand push-ups. And again, I'm speaking from a gymnastics background, everything like that, and I get that. But there's something to be said about that. It had no impact for me because that's just what my handstand has been my whole life.
Right.
I didn't try and change it. I didn't try and play the game. I kicked up. My hands were where they needed to be. It felt very natural. Did my handstand push-ups, moved on with my life. So just based on little anecdotal here, but it was the best standard they have. Like Kevin said, it was simple for class. It, was easy to set up, easy to judge, and quite honestly put you in a quality handstand position of what a handstand push-up should truthfully be if you're actually trying to get better. Yeah. And if we're talking from a gymnastics standpoint, it was great.
Yeah, which I'm biased, but I think we should always talk from a gymnastics standpoint. I think that as I'm thinking about it now, it solves two very important problems, right? First is something that we've talked about, which is virtuosity, and as it manifests in the affiliates so often, lack of virtuosity. And I want to go back real quick, talking about logistics for 23.1. What's the average number of members in your class over at Tilt?
12.
Yeah.
10 to 12.
10 to, yeah.
10 to 12. So that's a nice round number. And it was still complicated. And like, I think about like CFNE, like how that place is a shoebox. It is tiny. How that
Waltham location.
Yeah, our Waltham location, same thing.
That gets like 20
nice space, but small
beautiful.
space.
Yeah, 25, 20 to 30 members in it's a very small space.
Every single morning class.
Yeah,
like that. Scott said that the what was it? Tuesday, Monday, that like 5:15, 6:15, 7:15 class was all 30 plus people.
I mean,
which great problem to have, but
maintenance.
You know, yeah, I guess. So I think that's an important thing to think about when we think about like, setting up and logistics for class management and stuff like that. But coming back to the handstand push-up, it solves two things. One is virtuosity, and specifically lack of virtuosity. People get not happy with me when they kick up to a wall and drop down and then legs do this and there's no up. And they're like, why can't I do a handstand push-up? And I say, how many, pike push-ups or strict handstand push-ups do you work on? And they're like 0. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to have a talk now. And, I am a strict before kipping zealot. And CrossFit has always been that way. We were talking about the workout Nasty Girls. If you watch those 3 women in that workout doing Nasty Girls, there's not a fucking kipping ring muscle up in that video. They can all stand and grab the rings. So they're just dropping down and then keeping their heels tucked back and then pulling and pressing. They're all fucking strict. And so when I see something like this, where it's like, do handstand push-ups. Well, I can't kip. No, you should be able to do strict handstand push-ups. And then, what'd you say?
I love that.
Right? I do too.
It drives that home. It reinforces it. Like it's a better way to go. Like from both standpoints, if we're trying to get people to follow the CrossFit methodology, and if we're trying to limit the amount of like neck and shoulder injuries, and if we're trying to really train overall good health and pressing strength, like a strict handstand push-up. I mean, I'll tell you, if you can do strict handstand push-ups for big sets, your overhead pressing strength just through the roof.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. And I love that you brought up the safety aspect. I have a bunch of really, really good friends who are high-level coaches who just out and out will say, I will not teach a kipping handstand push-up anymore. Period. Full stop. And it's not like they can't. It's just not worth it from a safety standpoint to try to convince an athlete to do strict and then go to kipping when everybody in the community and the ecosystem is like, oh no, here's how you kip. And they skip that whole thing and they don't understand the fact that your fucking hips can generate so much power that it overcomes your inability to press. And that the downside of that is you can't control your body's weight overhead. And at some point you're just going to go crack, and that's a problem for us as coaches. So I love the virtuosity aspect of it. The other thing is, had this been a kipping handstand push-up, it would have been impossible to judge. There would have been, like, part of the reason that we had like lines of tape and stuff like that is to enforce full lockout from like the hips, the shoulders, and the knees and stuff like that. Whereas if you're doing a strict handstand push-up, you got to just get to full lockout. It's that simple. Yeah. But people who kip, they go so fast. Sometimes the shoulder doesn't get past here, so there's no disposition. Sometimes their hips are piked back, and so their hips aren't completely open. They negated all of that by just saying, okay, cool, no kip, just press. And I thought that was a beautiful move. As a taller fellow with a relatively large wingspan, what'd you say?
I said I was not a fan.
Yeah, well, I'm
not able to use my hips to generate momentum. I'm not interested.
Pressing is a problem for me. I got long limbs, and it's never been a strength of mine, and I'm aware that it's not a strength of mine, and I don't like it when my weaknesses are highlighted. But that's part and parcel with the business that we're in. Yeah. building on that, so we've seen ring muscle ups, we've seen strict handstand push-ups. The burpee pull-up, I think, was a nice little work capacity test. I agree. I also love that we saw a 2-part workout. I got really excited when I saw that it was a 2-part workout. I still have, I think it was my second open was 2018, and oh god, yeah, 2018, and they had that
18.
dumbbell, 18.2 A and B. I love that workout. It was a lot of fun.
I had zero fun.
I tried to go too fast.
Well, because
you go slower, it's more fun. It's not as challenging. You feel better at the end.
No, because squatting is just stupid. And burpees are also dumb. It's so far down to the floor. and then I'm tired. You're gonna ask me to max out my clean.
I love that.
Yeah.
I didn't do great on it, but I love it.
We can look back on it fondly now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, at the time, getting through that round of 10 and 10, I did not enjoy by any means. And I vividly remember that the burpees were probably some of the most pathetic looking things I've ever done. But hey, now what a time to be alive.
I think the worst part of that workout was the 1 through 5, just having to pick up and put down the dumbbells so many fucking times was. Yeah. It was like that. This is a dumbbell power clean workout, is what this is.
I mean, the worst part of that workout was getting to the round of 7 and being like, oh my God, now I'm halfway done.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing awesome. And then you're like, oh my God, I forgot to actually do the math.
Yeah.
I'm halfway done. And you just feel like you're smashing your head into the wall for those last 3 rounds. That was the worst part, in my opinion.
Yeah. My version of that was, I think it was in 2020. It was the 8 barbell ground to overhead and 10 exactly.
I to do with that.
I don't even want to talk about that workout.
I have a memory of blacking out. I can actually remember when my brain switched off, and the only thing that kept me going was at one point I got a tap on the chest. Dave Fielding, who owns CrossFit Medfield. I hop over the bar, and he had to stop me, had to physically stop me and be like, Sam, you stepped, you didn't hop. And I'm just like, okay. And I reset and just keep going. And that's all I remember. It was so miserable, so miserable. Oh,
every single workout since then, Sam's been chasing that feeling just so he can feel something.
Actually, the closest I've come to that is 3 a.m. when your baby won't sleep. And you're just like, did I feed or change? Do I feed or change? What do I do first? Just please stop crying. And we're imminently waiting on baby number 2. So yeah, we get to party all over again.
Get to party all over again.
Super fun for you.
It is so much fun.
My version of that was 21.3, which was that
the fun one?
Huh?
Was that the fun one? The 2-parter?
Yeah. I love it. It was front squat, toes to bar, thruster, rest a minute, and then front squat, chest to bar, thruster, rest a minute, front squat bar, muscle up, rest a minute. And the reps were 15, 30, and 15.
I know.
And so I believe there was a 15-minute cap on that workout.
There was. Thank God.
2 minutes of rest. And so you're going through, and I not the worst at gymnastics, not the best at gymnastics. I also, thrusters are my mortal enemy. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going through, I remember talking to Colin. Colin's like, yeah, if you just break up the thrusters, fine. I'm like, no, but what you don't understand is if I put the bar down. But here's what you don't understand is I am soft. So if I put the barbell down on the thruster, if I put it down, I'm not going to get back to it till next week. I'm going to go home and come back and try again.
Right.
It's not happening. So I had to, if there could have been like a megaphone, I love people hearing what I was saying to myself in my head during those thrusters. It wouldn't be pleasant, and I would end up in a padded room with a shirt with no sleeves. But it took everything in me to finish that workout. Under the 15-minute cap, so I could finish it. And so I finished it, and I believe there's a 6-minute window at the end to do your deadlift, hang clean, clean, and jerk complex. Mm-hmm. And out of the 6 minutes, I laid on the floor for 4 of them. because I was done. It took because I know that like if I put the bar down on the last of the thrusters, it ain't happening for me.
Yeah.
And so got it done, laid on the floor, had one, I remember like my judge Jake was like, hey man, you've only got 2 minutes to lift. I'm like, all right. So I was like, peeled myself off the floor. I think I did one lift at 135.
Mm-hmm.
And then I may have just slapped like 225 on there and just given it a rip just because like I have nothing left in my life. Did the ugliest cleans the entire, got it. But I was on another planet. And then after, so I did that attempt in the morning between classes because I had to for schedule wise. I practiced in the afternoon. I think 10 minutes after that experience, I had to coach the noon class. Well, it didn't go great. It wasn't good. 0 chance. Oh, anyways, sometimes gotta love the open. Gotta love the open.
The last time I had like the last time I didn't have fun like that, we had some workout. This was not an open workout, but it's, again, visceral memories. I think it was 1K row for time, and then like in a certain time window, remaining time was like max rep clean and jerks or something like that. Yeah, exactly. And so I'm very comfortable on a rower, and as I'm trying to bait everybody, frankly. I like to lie to athletes and get them to do things that are a trap. And so I'm trying to get them to be like, this should be a PR 1K attempt. Just
amazing. Who would believe that?
if you say it right and you just flat out lie to them and be like, listen, the lift part doesn't matter. This is all about the row. And then they get through and it's like, lift heavier.
Yeah. Oh.
So at the end of that class, we get through the entire thing. We're talking, everyone's kind of peeling themselves off the floor, and they're talking about, what is appropriate for a 1K time and blah, blah, blah. And someone was like, Sam, what's your PR? And I told them, and they're like, you should do it. I'm like, that's a bad idea. I've got a coach in like 10 minutes. And they're like, it'll only take you 3.5 minutes. And I'm like,
they got you there.
Shit.
And
so I did it. And I finished. I PR'd my 1K cold and then laid on the floor for 5 minutes and then was not a human being for this class that came after that.
Right. No,
yeah.
Right.
Bad idea.
Yeah.
So we're 42 minutes in. This is going to be a problem because I'm going to ask a question and we're going to go down a rabbit hole.
I love it. It's going to be great.
So I've had the good fortune to work with a bunch of the staff members from CrossFit Gymnastics several times. And I have my own opinions about this stuff, but as a gymnastics coach and as a person who's a competitive gymnast and now coaches CrossFit, right? And so we have overlapping parts of those methodologies, but these are really, you're like living inside of the CrossFit methodology predominantly.
Mm-hmm.
Two-part question. What is your biggest pet peeve in gymnastics and CrossFit as a coach?
I think I know this one.
And 2, what is the biggest miss that more coaches could address and make their lives easier?
Love that. All right. Oh, I'm kind of curious to hear what you have to say first.
Oh, so here's my guesses. I think his biggest pet peeve is how the muscle up is taught in CrossFit.
It's a good one.
Nailed it.
It's a great one. I agree. There's a lot brewing.
Is it specifically that you have to pass through a dip when that's stupid?
No, I don't think that's wrong at all. I think if you look at what that skill is in gymnastics,
mm-hmm.
We try to teach it in gymnastics to not pass through a dip, which I recognize is damn near impossible for 99.9% of the population, unless you are specifically training gymnastics. If you are specifically training gymnastics at a high level, in all reality, that's not a very high level skill. It's pretty routine for most guys. But what I don't love about it, and and we'll just kind of lean into this a little bit here. Whether this is my number one pet peeve or not, we'll lean into it a little bit.
We're here now.
Yeah, well, it's what it is. Let's go with it. So the way that CrossFit teaches it, I'm not saying it doesn't work, because clearly it does. They've had success. You see athletes do it. Amazing. But what you've also seen recently is this shift in how higher level athletes are performing it and how higher level people are teaching it. They're teaching it more of a purely gymnastic standpoint. And the reason being is because if you want to be a high level athlete in CrossFit, you need to be efficient.
Yes.
And this more gymnastics technique teaches athletes how to use their swing more than their pull.
Yep.
The OG style of CrossFit teaching it is that big hip pop, pull to the hips, and then through some sort of magic power, be able to sit up from a horizontal position while your body is suspended in the air, holding onto rings into the lowest possible dip position that you can find, completely trash your triceps trying to do a dip, and then do it again, and then do it again, and then do it 27 more times for a set of 30.
Turns out changing directions in midair is really, really, really inefficient.
I don't know how many people you know can sit up from a horizontal position while suspended by nothing, basically doing a GHD sit-up. Let's just think about that. You're doing a GHD sit-up without your feet locked into anything.
Yes.
In midair, while swinging on a rings and hoping that you don't just chicken wing and tear your shoulder.
Yes. So sidebar, that's also why GHD sit-ups and muscle-ups for most people is the worst combination of movements ever, because you're doing the same thing.
Right.
If you're doing GHD sit-ups, you like toast your midline. And if you're doing muscle-ups, and I'm no muscle-up aficionado, but
pretty good muscle-ups, though.
Thanks. I learned from Kev. And so
you learned from me. You learned from me.
Every single time I tell him, like, I learned from Kev in gymnastics, he's like, yeah, he took that from me.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Colin's the reason I'm decent at gymnastics and CrossFit.
I'll take it.
And so, but to the point is, like, if you're doing a GHD sit-up and then you're doing that version of muscle-up Colin's talking about, where you just like, you get your legs in front of you enough where you can see your toes.
Yep.
Then you do the biggest hip thrust in the world and try and like touch your hips to the rings.
Yep.
Like, you're thinking like you're basically in a position like if you've ever seen the movie like The Exorcist, where you're like floating off the table and your back bent like that.
What it is.
Like that's what it is. You're there just holding the rings, and then you have to do the biggest sit up in the world just to get your shoulders in front of the rings and like look for the floor.
Yeah,
that's the world's biggest sit up.
It's a massive
in midair. If you like, it's a pure range of motion, but it's also demanding so much of the hip. You have to like get your hips up there, and then once they're there, without any anchor point on either side.
Yeah.
Switch the angle of your hips to get over the rings. And then, so then, you know, you see like GHD sit-ups and ring muscle-ups are the worst combination in the world. And of course, I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, like it's hard because you do need your midline for like a good swing. But if you're not trying to do like a reverse decline GHD sit-up over the rings, it's not nearly as bad. But that tends to be what happens because, you know, that's how people can kind of get their first one. Maybe is if I just yeet my hips hard enough, I can get one.
And to be clear, we're skipping the strict versus kipping discussion, right?
Yes. This is a kipping ring muscle up.
Absolutely. We're not talking about.
I do have some thoughts on the strict.
Yes.
But
I
would love to hear those as well.
But it's like, you know, just kind of going back to it real quick. It works. It'll work, but it's relying.
It checks the box.
Say again?
It checks the box.
Yes, you can get it done. You can get your first one. And I'll say you can get your first one faster doing it like that than you can if you learn it from more of a purely gymnastic standpoint. And I will make the session 100 out of 100 times. Yep. However, you are greatly lowering your ceiling. So if your goal is to be a competitive athlete or even just simply learn to do multiple in a row, where this becomes an accessible skill during a conditioning piece that you're pairing with something like a sit-up, even if it's an ab mat sit-up, or something like even a power clean where there's a pull involved as well. And if you're pairing it with anything like that, you're going to drop off a cliff so fast. If you learn it more from that gymnastic standpoint, it's going to take you longer. It is. And I will say that again, 100 out of 100 times.
Sure.
But you're going to learn it better. You're going to increase your ceiling and you're going to be able to continue to do them for longer. You're going to be able to continue to do more. Then you're going to be able to build your capacity on that movement because the swing is what's driving it, not this crazy hip pop and arm pull and all this crap. It becomes a much more subtle range of motion, a much smaller range of motion. And you're swinging.
Yeah.
There's less pull. There's
Yeah.
less sit up. There's just swing.
Yeah.
It's, why would you use the idea of a kipping pull up? Use your kip swing.
Yeah.
Stop trying to fight it. Use it.
Mm-hmm.
Use your swing on the rings. That's why it's there. I know I've worked with plenty of athletes like, yeah, I can do a couple strict ring muscle ups. I'm like, amazing. You should be able to do a kipping muscle up.
Yeah.
It's easier. Yeah. If you're strong enough, it's easier. It's a fact, right? That's why we kip, because you can get more work done faster. It's easier.
Yes.
And they can't do it because they don't have any swing technique. And as soon as they dial in that swing technique, even this much, I just see them take off. And
so much easier.
And it's just easier.
Yeah.
So that's I don't know if that is my biggest pet peeve, but
it's the same thing on toes to bar. They use your swing. We were doing a toes to bar workout in class, and you're like, everyone's using their hip flexors and their legs to do shit. I don't understand why. Just use your swing. It's easier.
I'll say I have a shockingly weak midline for a former gymnast. Like if you ask me to do if you ask me to do 50 ab mat sit-ups in a row, I'm gonna cramp in the middle of it. Have to do a little cobras or seal flip or whatever to loosen that bad boy up. You want me to walk out 50 toes to bar? I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because I'm swinging. I'm using my swing. I'm not using my core, my abdomen, my hip flexors. It's just this big old swing. And if you compare my actual core strength to my ability to do a high level gymnastics skill like a toes to bar, it makes no sense.
See, I have to imagine though that some of that. So first of all, I agree, and especially with the ring muscle up. People don't understand how to swing. For me, that comes back to they have no idea really what a hollow and an arch is. Yeah. And none whatsoever. A pike is not a hollow. I'll say that until I die.
That's it. That's the biggest pet peeve. Oh, keep going. Oh, man. Oh, that's it.
Right. So.
Oh my God.
Get
me all fired up over here.
One of the biggest eye openers, and I do it every time I run a toe to bar seminar. I love running toe to bar seminars because it's very, very accessible for people at different levels, and it doesn't have a strength prerequisite like a pull-up seminar or something like that. I spend the first hour of a 2-hour toe to bar seminar working hollow and arch and breaking brains. And then once they understand that they've never been held to a standard in terms of a hollow and an arch, and they understand first what it is static on the floor as an apparatus, then up on the bar as an apparatus, static position. Then they make it dynamic, controlled. And now finally they understand, okay, I'm going to swing and I'm going to use that swing, but it's not flailing. I'm not broken all through my fucking body from wrist to ankle. It's under tension so that I can load everything and then snap back up. I assume that knowledge and that ability to employ those mechanics is going to be something that's going to help you get to 50 toe to bar. Yes?
Yeah. And for somebody who's been doing it for so long, it's no longer a thought. It's just hollow and arch are very natural positions. But
yes.
And we all do it as coaches. Every single coach I've ever met, I do it. Kevin does it. You do it. Everyone does it. I'm just going to say it. When we're like, all right, let's warm up your hollow shape. And some of it is just because of the flow of class, the sake of time. We need to keep things moving. We're trying to teach different things. We got a lot to do. All right, I'm going to do your hollow hold. I want this, this, and this. But it's very, very challenging to get athletes into what is a true hollow body shape.
Yeah.
You stop, you break it down. And I don't think people realize how much you can truly break down a hollow body shape to get into a true hollow body shape. Not too long ago, I did a little gymnastics class here, and I had a bunch of athletes, and I took the time, I broke it down, and we got into a real hollow body shape. And everyone was like, oh my God, that was way more challenging. And I was like, yeah, you've never actually been in a true hollow body shape that is going to realistically translate to more gymnastic skills.
Sure.
And the amount of time under tension in that true hollow body shape you need to master that, to make it second nature, it's so much. I did gymnastics from 3 years old to 23 years old.
Yeah.
Right. 20 years as an athlete. I started competing when I was 8. I retired from the sport when I was 23.
Mm-hmm.
I've been involved with the sport pretty much ever since. To this day, at 34 years old, I still do hollow body rocks as part of the core work.
Yeah.
Because that's just something that if I want to maintain a certain level of gymnastic proficiency, has to be there. I did 3 sets of 30 hollow body row or something like that the other day as part of just a little accessory work when I was done working out.
Yeah.
And they're still challenging to make sure that I keep myself in the best possible shape that I can be in. And well, otherwise is lying to you.
Yes. And it turns out if you're trying to create as much tension as humanly possible, it never gets easier because it's as much tension as you can make. Yep. All right, beautiful. I'm very, very happy that we're aligned on that. That makes my heart sing.
What do I say here? Tighter is lighter.
Tighter is lighter. Fucking A, right. Yes.
It's great because Colin we'll be taking class, and so Colin will be like, so we want you to squeeze all these things because tighter is lighter. And I'm like, that seems fake. I'm still I can squeeze every inch of me. I'm still 200 pounds. Doesn't make it any easier.
Well, my favorite thing is
your butt gravity turns down. It's science.
Oh, okay. I didn't squeeze my butt hard enough.
My favorite thing, especially with hollow and arches, we talk about like, give me long legs in your arch position. I don't want to see your knee bend. And they're like, why? I say, if you want to apply more leverage, you need a longer lever. If you break that lever between your hip and your ankle, it's like trying to do ab mat sit-ups and pinning your arms by your wrists or by your sides like that, which is hilarious to make people do to get them to understand that. All right, so I mean, we could tell coaches, hey, just do more strict hollow body work. And if you don't understand what a good virtuous hollow position is, hire a coach for the love of God and learn. But from your perspective, other than that, what is something that coaches can do to move the needle and make their lives easier when they teach gymnastics in a group setting in CrossFit?
Ooh, that's a great question. I mean, since you said besides that, I got to think about it a little bit because quite honestly, like that's the big one. The hollow and arch goes further than anything else. I
agree.
Truly think that. But I think we kind of touched on it before and we can, circle back, touch on it again. But teaching it, or if you need to be taught it from a purely gymnastic standpoint. And I get that not everyone has that knowledge. I recognize that and I understand that's challenging. But if we are professional coaches, we should be continuing our education to learn those things. So if there's something you don't know, there is somebody out there who can teach it to you. Or there's the content out there for you to start to educate yourself on that. And I'm not saying you have to be a master at everything, but if we can start to understand a little bit more of that pure gymnastics technique, how important the hollow and arch are, how important it is simply to keep your body tight. I mean, as a gymnastics coach, I think I've said squeeze your butt, point your toes more times than any other cue I've given in my entire life. Because honestly, it fixes so many things when it comes to gymnastics. When you keep your body tighter, you can move your body more efficiently. And I think we need to stop treating gymnastics differently than any other movement we do in the gym. We don't allow people to set up on a barbell for a deadlift with a loose spine and zero tension. We teach them to get tight on the bar. We teach them what the correct position is and truly the correct position, not just like, that's good enough, let's have at it. Because we know that can lead to injuries. And I think we focus a little more on the barbell because the barbell will lead to hip and back injuries for the most part. That's going to be the most egregious thing that we focus on. Now with gymnastics, we're probably not seeing as many back injuries coming from learning to kip, learning to hollow an arch, or whatever it is, learning the muscle.
No, but it's elbows, shoulders.
Exactly. And quite honestly, it can be back too. If you're putting somebody into an overextension or an arch position when they don't have the proper shoulder mobility, you're damaging their spine. That's not great either.
No.
So I think we need to stop treating gymnastics differently than we treat so many of the other movements. Teach it right, teach people to be tight on it, and you're going to see a lot more out of it. And teach it strict first. I mean, if you kind of take the concept of a strict pull-up into a kipping pull-up, I almost look at that as teaching the deadlift before you teach the power clean.
Yes.
I look at it very similar. Like teach them to set up correctly, teach them to set up tight, teach them how to create tension, do a deadlift. Amazing. You've mastered that. Teach them how to do a strict pull-up. Teach them how to engage their lats. Teach them how to keep their body tight when they're pulling. Teach them how to use the correct muscle groups and get them strong. Then let's teach them how to kip. Teach them how to do a hollow body shape. Teach them how to do an arch shape. Teach them how to do that statically on the bar. Teach them how to do it dynamically on the bar. And I recognize that those things are very challenging to do in group settings. I have trouble with it myself. Even having the breadth of knowledge I do, it's tough because it takes so much attention to detail.
Yep.
So it's you can't necessarily do it in a group setting to the way that you want. But I personally work with some athletes who want a little bit extra help on gymnastics, and the first like 4 weeks of that one-on-one instruction is like learn a hollow body shape.
Yeah.
But I think that's the best thing in terms of teaching gymnastics that we can do is stop treating it differently. Don't just say, hey, get up there and do a kip swing. Like, let's learn to do it right. Treat it like you treat the barbell, because every CrossFit class that I've been to, the coaches focus on the barbell, because I think there can be more, like I said, more egregious injuries that come from that. It's easy, throw your back out on a deadlift, slip a disc, whatever it might be. You're not going to see that when someone's doing a kipping pull-up, but you can see gradual injuries that are going to build over time if somebody's not strong enough in their strict pulling. They're not proficient enough with their hollow and arch. They lose tension in their body. Now you're going to run into an injury. It's going to happen, whether it's this big all at once or it's a progressive thing over time where all of a sudden they're like, my shoulder's bothering me, starting to feel this, and it just gradually gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
I also think the reason that people, to Colin's point of like people tend to focus on the barbell more when they're coaching in class, one, it's easier because it's easier for people to understand the points of performance of that than understand the points of performance of gymnastics movement. And that might come down to just lack of education. But the second part is, and I've talked with Colin about this, is like, if I'm teaching a snatch, let's say, and we're talking, going through like a snatch pull.
Yeah.
So much easier for me to be like, hey, pause at your knee. Everyone pause at the knee. And it's like, hey, everyone's stopped. Yeah. It's like they've frozen time. I can now fix things. It's very difficult to be like, okay, I want you to pause when your elbows start to break on your pull-up. Sick. Everyone here, great pause. Awesome. Like fix your hollow. That can't, unless you're Colin, and I watched him do this. One point he talked about this is infuriating. He talked about points performance in class, but like basically where you're like how to engage your lats in the back of your pull, and like paused himself here and was like, while you're here, you want this. I was like, how the fuck did you just pause in the middle of pull up? It sent me. I was taking class. I quit. I walked out the door. I was like, done. But to that point, it's way easier to manage the positions in a weightlifting movement, because even whether it's with a PVC pipe or even an empty bar, you can have people pause in both parts of the pull, parts of the catch part. Like you can pause them, fix what needs to be fixed statically, which, if anyone has gone through any amount of teaching at the CrossFit methodology, static corrections are way easier than dynamic corrections.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like everything you're doing with a barbell, you can always bring it back to a static correction and make it happen and be relatively effective. It's almost impossible for most gymnastics movements, unless you're like learning a hollow body shape and an arch shape, like on the floor where you can like hold a position.
Right.
It's almost impossible with every gymnastics movement to have like a static correction that you can make, because they're going to be moving.
Right.
So I think that there are two things at play there that are really important. First, Colin, I love that you said we're professionals. I think we are professionals, and if you don't treat yourself like or feel like a professional coach, think about what you want to do about that, right? Like, do you want to be a professional coach? Cool. If so, take the necessary steps to fucking act like it, right? And that includes things like being honest about your weaknesses from a coaching standpoint and educating yourself, right? I think one of the things, once you set aside things like lack of education and lack of knowledge, because information is free. You can Google or YouTube anything. And what's hard is finding reputable sources, A, and then B, getting into the more nuancy things of being taught something versus being coached in something. And setting that issue aside, I think that you're right, Kevin. It is easier to address static issues at the barbell because we are taught points of performance and progressions for barbell movements. We are not taught points of performance and progressions for gymnastics movements. at the same level and to the same degree. It was, and I remember doing coaching development back when I was at One Nation. I was talking with this coach, and we were talking about the pull-up. And it was, okay, how do you coach the pull-up, all right? Do you understand what a hollow and an arch is? Let's assume you do, right? Don't go to the bar. Put them on the rings. And then have them do a ring row. Have them do the prettiest ring row in the world. And they should be able to, with arms fully outstretched and a nice aggressive grip, press the ring down to their hip and then hold. So you hold in the bottom, check their position. Pull, hold at the top, check their position. And you can set those fixes and do those things. And you've got to be deliberate about it. And if you don't have the understanding about how to go about doing that, there's no chance that you're going to be able to employ static fixes like that in a movement before you make it more complicated by putting them on an apparatus like the bar. The other thing is, if you've overprogrammed your class, even if you have the ability, you've got no time to teach something like that. If you're running a 60-minute class, you do a 10-minute warm-up, a 15-minute lift, and you're going to do a 15-minute Metcon on the back end of it, like, when the hell are you teaching? Never mind what you're teaching. It's that, and that's one of the things that I constantly struggle with in some of the work that I do with other coaches, is getting them to understand that they're not doing their athletes a service in having them do more just by throwing volume at them, throwing barbell work at them, and throwing a Metcon at the end. They need to turn that more into better and shift that energy from, hey, just do this, to, I'm going to work the shit out of you for 5 minutes and you're never going to forget it, And they'll get more out of that 5-minute window than they will out of another 5x5 back squat.
Spend that 5 minutes teaching your athletes and having them hold a true hollow position.
And if you don't know what we talk about when we talk about a true hollow, for the love of God, go to a CrossFit gymnastics course. I'll throw those guys a bone. I love them to death, and you'll get CEUs if you're level 3. Go do it. It's a great course, and learn. If you don't know, learn. And if you are even questioning whether or not you don't know. So just go.
That Harry Potter question, the Harry Potter quote. If you already know, you need only ask, and if you have to ask, you'll never know.
I know I liked you.
Always hit deep.
Yeah.
Always hit
Boom.
deep.
Well, we lied to ourselves and told ourselves we were going to aim for 40 minutes, and we've gone a half hour past that. I know.
Pretty close.
Ballpark, almost double. Colin, final thoughts about either the open or gymnastics or anything like that? Anything you want to contribute before we kick you free and let you go about your day?
Yeah, couple quick thoughts. First one, love the open.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll leave you with this. If they had done 7 minutes of burpees, huge disservice to the CrossFit community. Great job in doing that, CrossFit.
Interesting.
And if you want to talk about that another time, I will go down that rabbit hole for sure.
I can see the merits of your point.
So we're going to have Colin on for a second podcast.
Right, we'll talk about that another time. But great job with the CrossFit Open this year. I absolutely loved it from a few different standpoints, and I can keep talking about that another time if you want. Second thing, when it comes to gymnastics, let's stop treating it differently. Okay, yeah. Gymnastics is just as, if not more, complex than barbell movements. It's just simpler to teach the barbell movements. Mm-hmm. It's more accessible for everyone to teach barbell movements. It's easier to scale barbell movements. Yeah. But gymnastics is just as complex. So let's stop brushing it under the rug and let's really focus on teaching it well. And if we don't know how to teach it well, let's educate ourselves as coaches.
I love that. Well said. Kevin?
I'm just going to kind of agree with everything Colin just said. I really enjoyed the Open this year. I've never I enjoyed being proven wrong more than this year in the Open. I love that for you. Yeah. Never have I been more happy to be proven wrong. I had a ton of fun with this year's workouts. I think they were really well done. Mm-hmm. And exactly same thing on the gymnastics. Pike's not a hollow.
Trigger word right there.
Trigger word. Beautiful. All right, Colin, we're definitely going to have you back. This was a shit ton of fun. For everyone who listened this long into it, congratulations. We'll come back next week with something completely different. So thank you, everybody. Colin, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. See you, everybody.
Take care.
See ya.